You're listening to the AFTERBUZZ TV network, now the largest new media platform on the web, and your #1 source for after-show entertainment.
Very good, Dean Johnson.
From the AFTERBUZZ Studios in Los Angeles, California, presented by Maria Menounos and Bing.com, and streaming live thanks to Akamai Technologies, this is AFTERBUZZ TV's Revolution After Show. We'll break down tonight's episode and get you all the latest news and gossip. If you'd like to buzz in on tonight's show, you can buzz us at 424-256-1729. That's 424-256-1729. And now, another post-game wrap-up show for your favorite TV show. It's AFTERBUZZ TV's Revolution After Show.
Hey guys, we were just so excited that we're dancing away with this new move that I'm calling the piano and then reach for the sky. You're playing the piano, then you reach for the sky. Guys, Bing is for doing, and we were doing the Revolution After Show, and I'm so excited. This episode was tons of fun. I had a lot of fun watching it, because trains are fun, apparently. That's what I've learned.
Okay, yes. I know I was a little bit critical last week with the episode, but this episode just blew my expectations out of the water.
Yeah, there were a lot of explosions. We know that, Kristen, okay?
No pun intended.
Not a pun intended. No, but seriously, there was new levels of intrigue. There was so much character development. And for Tom Neville's character, who I was in love with before anyway, we're starting off with Fight Club. Like, I mean, I just thought this was the best opener
Brad Pitt
as well.
fans here. Okay, so let's do some introductions, though. So, guys, sitting across from me, the ever so lovely Kristen Snyder.
Hi, guys. What's up?
And what a sexy voice there. And, guys, Derrial Christon sitting right next to her.
What's up, everybody?
Even sexier.
A sexier.
Thank you.
And look at that purple. Looks good on you, man.
Thank you.
Looks good for those who are watching.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, and sitting next to me, the ever so lovely Kristin Carole.
Hey, guys.
Getting sexier.
I think purple would look better on you, though.
I agree.
No, you should have done purple. Just,
I agree. Hey, no problem.
And guys, sadly, I am not Kristen. My name is Dave Klein, and that's why I am the black sheep in the group.
The sexy Dave Klein.
The sexy, thank you. Ever so sexy, guys.
If you're not watching on YouTube, you should probably switch over.
That was a mistake. That was a mistake. Just watch on YouTube. Because as you've heard here, we're all pretty sexy. All right, and in the booth we have John, also super sexy.
What's up, everyone?
What's up, John?
What's up?
Not unlike all the characters.
I might have to
Revolution.
take off some clothes here because it's getting hot.
I feel like everybody in Revolution took off their shirt at some point.
Yeah, they did. This was this was actually transitioned to that. That's why we were doing that, to the point that Nora had her shirt off. We had Tom Neville with his shirt off in the very first scene.
Yeah.
So we get that first scene, which is Captain Tom Neville having sort of the fight club, as Kristen mentioned. And I just started boxing recently, and I just want to throw out his form was a little off. Sorry, guys. His form was kind of off there. I have to throw it out there.
For an insurance agent, though, it sounds pretty good. Paper pushing to punching, I like it.
But he's been doing that for a while, we've found out. That's kind of his thing to blow off steam.
Yeah.
So he kind of challenges, he's just having sort of a fight club, and he calls up Danny to the table to fight Danny, and Danny doesn't really want to fight back. And it's almost kind of reminiscent, when we find out later, of sort of who Tom was in the past. That's kind of what it makes me think of. Who was Tom before everything happened, before he had to sort of harden up? And that's kind of what Danny's acting like here.
Yeah, speaking to the character development for Neville, I feel like he's finally living out his true potential and exploring who he could be as a human being.
So sort of an asshole as opposed to a nice guy.
No, such a strong guy.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say asshole, yes, a little bit, but I think it's that syndrome of he was sort of abused, sort of, but with work and the way that they treated him, and then we see the scene with his neighbor. He's taking it back out on everybody. Yeah. You know? So he's like kind of getting his inner badass. Like everybody else.
I think everyone has an inner badass.
I think so. He found his.
That's the moral of this episode, Soul Train.
Yes.
Yeah, which is the name of the episode, Soul Train. I wish they'd all gotten together and done a Soul Train dance like the TV show Soul Train.
That would be great.
That would have been amazing. But instead they're fighting. They're doing the fight club.
We can do that.
That's also why we're dancing at the beginning, for Soul Train purposes.
This is my train dance.
That's a good point.
All these connections going on, left and right.
Well, I always say it's always the quiet ones, and Neville Neville's not quiet anymore.
Right.
I used to be very quiet.
Well, and it also explains how.
Yeah, some Soul Train going on.
Look at our Soul Train
like
going on. Dave, what's yours like? Is that your Soul Train?
Yes.
I think mine's like this. Locomotive.
Yeah.
A little bit of shoulder.
A little shoulder.
Sorry for you guys that can't see us dancing.
Okay.
Check us out on YouTube.
I'll be interested to see the comments on YouTube.
So let's talk about the flashback then. So we get that flashback where Tom Neville's, we're seeing him working as an insurance salesman, and before he was kind of hyping it up when he talks about now, like, oh, I was a great insurance salesman, I was just saw right through people. Not so much. It looks like he was kind of that nice guy who wanted to give someone a break. Like the fire had destroyed someone's house, and he was trying to help these people out, and his boss fires him because they didn't have smoke insurance or some sort of
smoke alarms or something.
Right, like something that wasn't right, that Tom was just trying to be nice, but when you're working at an insurance company, that's how you lose money. Yeah. So they have to go to every extreme to make it like, oh, well, what policy did you not quite have that you should have had?
The cool thing I like that he brought up was you don't remember banks, you don't know what that was like, and that he never saw his money, and we kind of really don't either. We just use plastic. You know, so that was a really interesting point.
It's funny. I think about that a lot, and not even because of the show. It's something I think about where I get my check every couple weeks, and I don't see it at all. It goes straight to my bank. So I'm just like, I'm kind of like just have this one card, and I know how much money I have, but in a sense, I don't see it. So how much money do I have?
Yeah.
But we see him in this state beforehand where he really was just a really nice guy, and kind of a bit of a pussy. Sorry, but he.
Are you allowed to say that word?
I mean, they're throwing out bitches, they're throwing out dicks. I mean, I think I can say it, okay?
We need, like, pennies. You need to pay for those, Dave.
We'll have a jar next week.
So that's how much you think I make, apparently. How much I really have in the bank. It's just pennies there.
You don't even have pennies. You just have a debit card.
That's true. I can't even do that. I don't have it.
Just throw your debit card in. We'll go to lunch.
But it also explains kind of the last couple of weeks of how we've seen Neville's character. We see that he has this edge, but there's something about him that's still sort of sensitive.
Right. So,
and that explains. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, so let's explore those flashbacks then. And the flashback afterwards we get is him going home, and he's going home. He's kind of a good dad, but we also see his douchey neighbor who's having a rager going on next door, and he's just trying to be a typical dad, like not like, hey, stop partying because you're having fun, but hey, I have a kid who can't sleep because you're partying, can you please turn it down a bit? And the guy's like, brah, nah brah. That's in my head how he sounded. But the guy refuses to do it, and you think, even though it's kind of a dick move in a way, you'd think he'd call the cops or something and call for a noise violation. But he doesn't do anything. He's just like, oh, okay, whatever, and goes in to greet his kid, but he looks like a really nice dad.
Yeah.
And then he goes immediately downstairs to the basement to blow off some steam and start hitting the punching bag. And he's just going furiously at it, and his kid comes to spot him doing this and punching at the punching bag. And he tells his kid, quote, which is that we don't hit people, we only hit the bag.
Right.
So before everything happens, his philosophy is we don't hit people, we only hit the bag. So he does use it for blowing off steam, but in a very non-violent way.
Right.
Yeah.
Which we've already found out from the Fight Club thing, not so much anymore.
No. And I also wonder if he didn't take on Danny in the Fight Club, because if you noticed, all the people that kind of was giving him problems in the flashback, they were all a lot younger than him.
I'm passing those.
Is this a secret note?
What are we in high school again?
What is going on right now?
I had a really interesting point I wanted to bring up.
So, I'm lost now. I'm just totally lost.
No, you're talking
But okay,
about...
so now Derrial actually points something out at this point, which is he observed, and we want to give him props for this, that who was this son who was watching?
Nate. Well, this is the thing. When we were watching at the top of the show, I noticed that they've never really given a backstory on Nate, and we don't know his real name. And then their focus today was a lot on Jason, Neville's young son. And I started looking at the similarities. I was like, wouldn't this be interesting if this actually was his son, which we later find out it is. But it seemed to all kind of add up today. It hasn't triggered before this week, but today it kind of all added up to me.
Yeah, you definitely called it.
Yeah, we need an applause, actually.
Yeah, we do.
I wanted to use it in prediction.
Yeah, but this was right when we see the son. Daryl's like, that looks like Nate.
Yeah, and I didn't see it until you said that, but yeah.
Well, all the kids that they've hired look like the older versions of them.
Their casting is great.
So it makes sense.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Now, I did have something I wanted to bring up. When Neville and Danny were fighting, I was surprised that Danny wasn't fighting back, though, because we've seen him fight before.
Yeah.
So why today, when we're watching the episode in the Fight Club situation, he didn't have the balls to hit Neville back?
Because Derrial Fight Club is just wrong. No, I don't know. I think after he gets hit, though, it looks like he does kind of buckle up and try to. But then it's just Neville's a good fighter. Okay. So
I think actually he was breaking him in, though, because at first Danny didn't want to. And then after Neville tried to make him stronger and gave him a few hits, then suddenly he kind of wanted to fight, which is what Neville wants. He wants to break Danny so that Danny will kind of be one of his little soldiers.
And it's also that thing that we get from that flashback where we also saw from previous episodes where Neville compares Danny, you remind me of my son.
Yeah.
And we see in these flashbacks after everything goes to hell, he's telling his son, you need to harden up for time so we can survive. So he's kind of taking on that son mentality with him.
That's a great point.
That's a good point.
So, and good point bouncing off you, Kristen. So let's then move on to the scene afterwards with them kind of, Danny's in the cell, and he is not too happy with Monroe for beating him up. And Monroe's kind of telling that line that Kristen talked about with banks, and there's nothing that, you never see your money. And Danny's sick of his weird speeches and mind games. And he tells him to shut up.
I love that Danny stepped up and said that. I was like, yeah, Danny's finally becoming Danny. So maybe that worked. Maybe breaking his nose actually is making him step up, because I definitely saw a stronger Danny this episode, which I was happy about because I know it's in him. I mean, he was raised in the wilderness. He should be stronger than any of these characters who are coming out of their bank jobs.
Yeah.
Well, then also Danny knows that Neville can't kill him.
Right.
So he's calling his bluff, saying these things to him, and he knows that he's going to make his way on this train.
That's true. Yeah, that's very true.
I would start mouthing off a little bit too if I knew that I was going to survive.
Yeah, he knows he's needed. So
yeah.
All right, so let's jump on then to kind of the A story here that we have, which is Aaron and Charlie and them looking for Danny, who they've now reached Noblesville at this point. And Aaron and Charlie they haven't reached there, but Danny had. So Aaron and Charlie are looking over Maggie's tomb and grave, and Miles just wants to leave. He's like, they've had 10, 15 minutes. They've had enough time. I think it's 30 maybe. Let's get out of here. 30 minutes. Let's get out. So Miles is once again being kind of unsympathetic.
Although, can I just say with that, Charlie took a lot more time to grieve over Maggie than she did for her dad, Ben.
Because she was in revenge mode. She's like, let me just get some revenge.
Yeah. But still, she's so much closer to Danny than before. And before, she was just like, let's just go. And then all of a sudden, now Maggie, she's like, well, let's sit here and wait and grieve. Yeah. I just thought that was kind of interesting.
I feel like maybe she's reflecting on not just Maggie's death now, but maybe everyone else that she's lost too. And so with each punch, it gets more sore. Perhaps.
I was kind of with Miles on this. I'm like, well, just you got to keep going. You're so close.
Yeah, and I also think that, as she kind of expressed last episode, I think that she gave Maggie such a hard time that that was in her inner reflection of wanting to kind of grieve a little bit more and reconcile with her. So
that makes sense, guys.
So after this scene, they end up coming to Noblesville, and Nate is locked up in a cage, and I thought this was kind of funny, I guess, because Miles is like talking about, they're kind of talking about where Danny would be, and they're like, where could Danny possibly be? And Miles says they lock him up in a cell. That's what I do. And it's funny because sitting right there in a cell is Nate/Jason.
Yeah.
So apparently that is exactly what he would do, and we see it. He's true to his word.
Yes.
So they need to. They're like, they're in Noblesville. They know they're in the right place, so they need to search for Danny, and they're ready to kind of head off and do it. And Nora decides to kind of go off on her own at this point. And Nora, goes to a place where a guy named Hutch is, and she tells him that she's looking for the biography of Joe Biden.
Yeah.
Of all people. Okay.
Code?
Are they trying to give us some political statements right now in the show? Like, sway us a certain way?
This episode was brought to you by...
Right.
It was brought to you by Joe Biden.
I don't know.
I'm Joe Biden, and I approve this episode.
Because that is the code. That is apparently the code for the rebels. Yes. the biography of Joe Biden, of all things.
Of all things.
Does that even exist?
I don't.
There's probably one. If there's not one now, there will be.
Yeah, I don't know.
In 15 years when the power goes out.
Yeah, people will be like, you know
People have
what?
time to write.
I feel like I gotta write this biography now, 15 with the power out.
You know, that brings up an interesting point. Like, I want to see the culture. I want to see the music. Like, I want to see people playing music, and what kind of music is 15 years after all the power's gone out, and it's like this techno world is over, you know, and we kind of go back to folk music, or what kind of music emerges?
Irish folk music, because it's awesome.
Are people painting? Are people writing?
Yes.
Like, I know everyone's sort of tracking down their food and whatnot, but some people they've got to be expressing their self and feeding their soul in some way, and I hope that we get to see that culture.
We're probably getting a lot of blues, actually. A lot of blues music.
Or a lot of freestyle rapping.
Yeah, or freestyle rapping.
But that's a huge
that
part of
still
every
exists?
society, and I'm just really curious to stumble upon it. I feel like they've got to come in their travels to one happy society who has formed a utopia, sort of. I'm hoping for that, and they're just kind of happy and they found some joy in this powerless society.
I mean, I guess that's kind of like what the goal of everyone is to try and find and create that utopia at this point, because we are 15 years in the future and they're ready to start rebuilding. And especially the new, like the new generation who grew up that way, they aren't as hard as we see. Like Miles became hard. We saw Monroe's become hard. Tom Neville's become hard. But the new generation, like Nate, Charlie, Danny, they're all softer.
They haven't lost as much.
Right, so they're ready to kind of rebuild and start being friends again, and they're not as hating towards each other.
That's a great point, Dave, because the children aren't at each other's necks.
Right.
They're kind of together, which is really interesting. So perhaps if this happened to our generation and we had kids, our kids would all love each other again and society would re-evolve.
Right, it'd just be like kind of getting through that initial point of surviving and the shock, and once you get through that shock wave, things can rise again.
The next generation that hasn't experienced that could re-evolve.
Right.
That's a good point.
And work together.
So Nora, though, she's at this point and she wants to blow up the train. That is her goal, and Hutch is like, all right, I'm all for it. He's totally for it. And she's like, so where are the others? And Hutch is the only rebel left. Even his beloved wife has died.
Yeah.
Which we find out is his true motivation before
to do it.
To do anything, really.
Yeah.
Well, everybody he trusted is gone. That's got to be really tough. And here comes somebody that has revenge, and when you've lost everything, you can kind of see where he goes towards that route.
I get the crazy.
Crazy with intention.
So we get
intentionally crazy.
So we get Nora and Hutch coming in together to go work on the bomb and plan out some schematics, because it's a fun word to say.
Nice.
They get out some schematics and start plotting out making this bomb. And Nora, as we know, is the expert at explosives. She's kind of explaining how it's going to work.
I'm interested to see her background. Like, how is she an expert in explosives? Have we gotten any of that yet?
Baby, she was born this way.
All right.
That's
Somebody's
an old school
been
reference.
listening to Lady Gaga over here.
Lady, what? Okay.
I heard someone else talking online about how all these characters would walk 5,000 miles. And I would walk 500.
Wait, we don't have the rights to this song. You have to stop singing this right now.
Maybe someone with a better
We're very
voice.
musical tonight.
We're very musical and dancey tonight. It's a fun night.
Because you know why? I feel like our reflection from the episode really stirred us up and got our adrenaline going, because I was excited watching this episode, and I feel like the show is going to reflect in our show.
I'm always excited when there's bombs.
Yeah.
That's just a general thing.
My mom watched the show tonight for like the first time, and she was like, it was so violent. I didn't know what was going on. It was too violent.
This was really one of the less violent episodes, though, when you really think about it.
I don't know. I thought it was
There weren't as many sword stabbings and deaths as the previous episodes.
Maybe because it was a little bit more brutal, where it was personal. It wasn't just somebody that they were shooting from the roof.
That's a great point.
But we didn't have a cannibal this time, though.
It's personal.
No cannibals, though.
Yeah, I was going to say, it was more physically brutal.
I just really like that this world is getting more chaotic.
Yeah.
Because that's how it should be.
Well, especially when Nora got stabbed, I did not see that coming.
Yeah, and let's talk about that whole little scene there in that exchange where they finish making the bomb and they've already planted it. And as the train is off and heading out, Nora has a change of heart because she sees both Captain Tom Neville there, but also Danny. And she realizes, you know what, I did make this promise. I can't do this. Yeah. And she wants to go run off, and Hutch is like,
we gotta make this happen.
No.
And just stabs her right away. He's like, you were right before, no matter what, we have to do this.
Yeah.
and it's for his wife.
Where did he disappear to?
He's just gone. He's like, man, I stabbed her, and I know Miles.
Yeah.
I'm out of here.
He went right back to the little place with the biography. He's rewriting the biography. He's the one who wrote it, actually.
Well, I also think with Nora, too, we saw earlier that she was protective over, because of her son that she lost, her child. And probably seeing Danny and how young he is, she felt like this also protective over protectiveness, I guess.
Yeah.
That's a word. Over him as well.
Yeah, and she's rolling with Charlie and Miles, and I think she feels the compassion there for the love that Charlie has for her brother as well. You know? I think that plays a big part into it.
So let's then jump on the point where Charlie, the groups kind of collide here. So we have Charlie running into Captain Tom Neville, and really they didn't recognize each other.
I thought about that.
Okay, you know what? I'm okay with suspending my disbelief, but
She wasn't there, though.
No, she didn't meet
in the
him.
beginning. Remember, she was on.
Was she not at all that whole time?
She was with her Return of the Jedi.
Yes, on the Ferris wheel.
Oh, you're right.
Okay, I thought she caught them at the end while they were heading off. They'd already left?
Yeah. And we're getting lots of like amusement parks, Ferris wheels. I mean, they're just all over the place, which I like, personally.
Well, let me say my bad then. My bad. I thought they had seen each other, so I was like, really?
Been a bad boy, Dave.
So bad. Watch out. So
Derrial, how are you doing over there?
Anyway,
all right,
back to Revolution.
Basically, she says she's spying to him, and she kind of catches herself and says that she's spying on. She thinks her boyfriend is cheating on her.
That was smart, by the way.
I liked
very
that.
smart. And she does that little like glance to the window.
And we got that nice reflection, that nice camera angle.
Played out very well.
I think she actually fooled him until she started tailing him. And that didn't go over well.
Until the second tail, which then Miles is there to save the day. And Miles and Tom have a history. Miles is like, well, hey, how's the wife? And then he responds, how's the nephew? And I'm thinking, so Danny, clearly they know. And Miles wants to make a trade, Nate for Danny. And here we have kind of Tom playing coy there. But I guess, like, I think Miles would know. I assume that Miles would know that Nate is this person.
I don't know, though, because he's been so secretive about it. Would he have told too many people about the fact that his son was there if Jason is calling himself Nate?
But they seem to know each other so well that we also have that exchange where Tom hugs his wife with Jason there, and the point that they would know each other that well. I'd imagine that maybe Miles did know. I don't know why he wouldn't have revealed it at that point if he had known. He does certainly act like the whole time he doesn't know, but I feel like he must have known.
Or maybe there's a period, which we'll find out later, that Nate, a.k.a. Jason, was gone from Neville, you know,
right.
Where we don't know yet, but maybe there's a point where within that disappearance period that Miles doesn't realize that this.
I mean, I guess we don't know the timeline of when Miles left.
I was just going to say that.
So it could have been like he's grown up. He is maybe around 18 or 20 at this point. So maybe
he was still in training camp.
Yeah. So is that
they
enough
want him within the militia while Miles was still around.
Can I just say the highlight of this show was this one line that Tom Neville says. He says it's when he was talking to Miles, and I'm gonna save this for myself. He says, I'm not gonna spread my legs and show you everything. And I'm gonna be using that in the future.
Well, alrighty then. It's hot in here.
I felt like he had a lot of great lines, right?
I liked the exchange. I thought it was a little cheesy, but I loved it. Especially when Miles goes, I gotta go, Tom, and Tom goes, you just got here. Anyways, and I thought that was great. I like that about the show. I think it knows that at a certain point it's being a little cheesy with the lines.
I like that,
which I love. That's not a diss. I like it.
When Miles was describing Nate, he was like, the guy with the short hair and the shirt too tight.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that was pretty funny, especially because at least I would say, like, oh, they all wear muscle shirts, apparently. They've got it pretty tailored up there.
This episode was very sexy, even in its lingo.
Yes, especially.
I just didn't like the little creepy exchange between Neville and Charlie when he said to her,
Sexy.
if your boyfriend, what does he say? He says, if your boyfriend is cheating on you, he's a fool.
Yeah.
But the way he said it was
he said it in a
kinda creepy.
That boy's a fool if he's two-timing you.
Because that could be like a nice
I wrote that down because that creeped me out a little bit too.
It's funny because that could be such a nice thing to say to somebody too.
But
the way that he says it
I don't
is in a
know.
creepy way.
Yeah.
No, it's like I haven't seen my wife in a while.
Yeah.
No,
That's how it came off to me.
That's why I was.
but I'm saying like the way you say it is what made it creepy. Like he could have said it in a way that made it not so creepy, but he said it in such a creepy way.
The lingo.
They kind of raised his eyebrow a little bit.
They did.
An odd acting choice. Maybe he suspected that she was following him at that point. I'll assume that.
Because he can tell people from his insurance days.
Yes. So Tom said. So during this exchange though with Tom and Miles, Tom asks, "Why did you leave?" And Miles just doesn't respond. And they end up kind of just leaving each other. They don't fight it out to the death, which I was a little surprised by. But I guess it's kind of the whole thing with Miles also didn't fight to the death with Jeremy from the week prior.
That's true.
So I guess he's still apparently the only person he has a vendetta against. We kind of come to find out at the end of the episode is Monroe,
which is still his best friend, and I don't feel like he wants to actually kill off any of these guys.
Yeah, it seems like the only person he really seems to have a distaste for is Monroe. For whatever reason, there's a falling out. But everybody else,
I still don't think he hates them. I don't think that he still wants to kill Monroe. I think he thinks that he has to stop him, but I don't think he wants to.
Maybe he doesn't want to kill the people that he knows because he helped make them who they are now.
Exactly,
and
that's a great point, Kristen.
But Monroe was there from the beginning, so that I don't think he feels as guilty.
All these
I would agree with that.
Exactly.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yes.
It would
can't
almost
kill
be
your
like
kids.
No.
All right, so after this little exchange, we kind of come back to the camps, and Aaron is hanging out, staring at the pendant, and sort of has a little tumble there, and the pendant falls over, and Nate gets a hold of it, and Aaron comes up with a quick on-the-spot excuse, which is a smart one. He says, that belonged to my wife. It was really important to me. So Nate gives it back, but he was kind of sweating it out there.
Everyone thinking on their feet.
Yeah.
He was definitely sweating it out, though.
If you're jailed, though, in a cage, are you going to give that pendant back?
I mean, he wants points with Charlie.
He wants points with Charlie, but here's my thing now, and maybe I'm wrong, but you guys tell me. If he's now Jason, who we know, doesn't he sort of know about the pendants?
No, they don't.
Oh, he doesn't know.
Right.
You're right. You're
because that's the whole thing with Monroe is trying to figure that
You're
out.
right. He doesn't know. You're right.
So they so after that whole thing, he gets it back, and the whole group kind of comes back, and Miles is pissed at Charlie for blowing the surprise, and he's sort of right there. He's definitely right. Like that was the one big advantage they had was that surprise, and Charlie kind of comes out and says, "Hey, I remember this one time when I was 4 years old, when you drove me in your car. What happened to that guy? You were such a nice guy."
Yeah.
The tape deck.
And the tape deck.
She remembers the tape deck.
She remembers the tape deck. And also before that, it was funny, like right when she starts like saying this memory, I remember this one time, I remember you, and Kristen goes, "How would she know?" And immediately afterwards, the line from Miles was, "How could you know?"
Yeah.
So
That's genius.
it was pretty funny. It was exactly what Kristen said, but then she's kind of explaining, "I do have this memory. What happened to that guy?" And he says, "He's dead.
Yeah.
That guy is dead. He's no longer here."
What do you guys think? Do you think he's dead, or do you think that guy is just very deep buried beneath the surface?
Well, he says later that he's still there. Just underneath there.
I mean, I think it's when you get any sort of scars. You have a lot of scars that kind of build on top of and layer over who you really are. So deep underneath, he is that guy, but he has so many scars on top that it just sort of keeps continuously building a wall after wall after wall.
And I think we see that that guy is not really dead, because if he was dead, he wouldn't be helping Charlie out, because, you know, it started at the bar in Chicago. I mean, he clearly still has that side of him that wants to help.
And I feel like Charlie just doesn't notice sometimes that he is still there. He is still trying to help, even though he's coming off the way he is.
I mean, I feel like Miles represents a large portion of our society who doesn't really see family as important anymore as they used to, and that they don't sort of owe their family anything. I feel like that's a lot of our society, especially people who just kind of run off to LA, not saying any of us, but you know, we kind of do leave our families.
You, Mom. Dad, Mom and Dad, I love you both.
But we do kind of leave our families to kind of live our own life and go off independently, and not us, but I feel like a lot of people like don't like their family, they don't associate with them, and they're like, I don't owe them anything.
Yeah.
And I maintain a strong relationship with my family, but I feel like he's sort of evolving.
But do you owe them anything?
I definitely do. I owe them a lot of thanks for everything, for bringing me up to be such an independent young lady.
Yeah.
But getting back to Revolution, I just feel like he represents a part of society who does need to evolve and remember their family. Then at the end of the day, remember that at the end of the day, you do just have your family, and you do just have these people who you are blood related to, who will stick by your side no matter what. So I think he represents a strong portion of our society that needs to re-evolve.
Do you think he kind of pushes them away, though, to keep them safe in one way? Because we don't know why he brought Rachel into the militia anyways. Maybe somebody else was going to do something. We don't know what his motivation was for that, because he seemed to actually have a halfway decent relationship with Ben. He was talking to him on the phone earlier, and you know, people that he trusted, his best friend, turned on him. So maybe he has, well, obviously he has trust issues. And
I mean, at the beginning, too, it seems like the whole reason Miles didn't want to help was he knows he's bad news, too. So it almost seems like he maybe felt like he'd be a hindrance.
Because the only thing he's good at is killing.
And I also, yeah, that's true. And I also think that he knows that Charlie is going to go find her brother regardless, and she can't do it by herself. She needs him. You know, I mean, they need each other in this particular way of getting Danny back. So.
Well, I feel like a lot of people don't feel like their families need them, but at the end of the day, even if you consider yourself bad news, your family needs you. That's my message of today.
Yeah. So let me jump on to the whole Tom thing here real quick. We get a brief scene with Tom wanting to leave and head out from the bank, which is kind of important later on. So in between here, we had Tom, after Charlie spots him, he's like, we got to go somewhere more secure. So they head out, and then we come back to Charlie has now discovered and is pissed that Nora's trying to blow up a train. And she's like, what is going on here?
Yeah.
So she turns to Nate for help, and Nate says, I can't help you. So Charlie's like, well, then I can't help you, and unleashes the hounds.
Oh,
I loved that part from her. But, man, that boy can jump.
Yeah, he can jump.
I
but
was
it
just
makes
thinking,
sense.
like, Nate is a good climber with having handcuffs on. He's a good handcuff climber.
Yeah.
I was impressed by Miles' handcuff moves, but Nate, that had height to it.
I feel like Nate was just letting himself be captured to be close to Charlie all that time, because clearly, as we can see, he could have gotten away if he chose to.
And clearly he's trained in parkour, too. That survives. Parkour survives the Revolution.
Survive.
So Nate gets away, and they run outside to find him, and they just cannot at all. He's gone. He's gotten away. So we then get them searching the bank. They find the bank, and it's gone, and Miles was right. So Miles is like, what do you know? The bank, this is the secure place, and they were correct about where it was. And we then get back to to Tom Neville. And Tom Neville is heading to Philadelphia, which we find out is where everything's located. That's where Monroe is located, and they're off, the whistles are blowing, and that is when they kind of spot the train and try to get onto it, and it doesn't quite work out.
Does not.
So Charlie, Miles, and Aaron end up running to Nora at this point, and that's after Nora's been stabbed, and she says, the bomb's on the train, you guys have to go get it. And they kind of take a moment there instead of running off after the train right away. And that is when Miles spots some fine horses. And I don't know if they bought the horses. I don't know if they stole the horses.
They definitely stole the horses.
But apparently they just kind of steal the horses, gloss over that. But they have the horses, and they're riding the horses towards the train. Again, very Wild Wild West to me, which is great.
Maybe they just borrowed them because the horses were gone later.
Well, something I want to point out is
they didn't have time for that conversation.
Finally, Miles lets Charlie go on this crusade with him. And that's really what you have to do. Even later on, Nora says, nice job, coach, because that's all he had to do. Rather than tell her, stay here, stop crying, stay here. No, you've been a bad kid. Like, rather than do that, like, show your kids why, you know, let Charlie go with you. Let her experience getting hit and punched in the face. Like, let her get some scars so that she can get stronger.
Yeah.
If you just keep them in the corner, they're never going to get stronger.
How very Tom Neville of you.
That is very Tom Neville of you.
Okay, but that's what Miles had to do with Charlie, you know? I totally am for that. Throw your kids in the ocean.
There we go. Pull their head underwater.
No, seriously, though. We are, like, the only mammal that keeps their children to the age of 25. Like, every other mammal and species out there, like, makes their children, even ducks, like they throw their babies in the water.
25? That's an old age.
And they make them swim. No, I'm just saying, I feel like a lot of people our age, 25 or younger or a little older, are still like being taken care of by their parents. And here it's like, yes, in order to make a person stronger and to make Charlie be a leader, you just needed to let her see some action rather than keeping her caged up.
What sort of action?
You know
more for more innuendos there.
Of action on me.
Here we go. Once again, hi, Kristen. How are you doing tonight?
So you're looking fine in your purple.
We have
maroon over there.
So we have this train chase, and Miles ends up jumping on, helping Charlie on with the horses, and a lot of fun action there. So they split off. Miles is going to go look for the bomb. Charlie's going to go look for Aaron. So Charlie spots Aaron. She finds him, and Aaron or Danny. I don't know why I'm saying Aaron. Danny. Charlie's looking. I think it's because Aaron wasn't there.
Right.
Aaron wasn't there, but Charlie's looking for Danny. Charlie spots Danny, and they kind of have this exchange, this glance, acknowledgement that Tom notices because it's a little bit too long.
It's twice.
And Danny was super obvious. I was like, play it off a little bit, Mr. Captain Obvious.
Exactly.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Like, do one glance and then don't look back. He was like glaring in the back of the train. I'm like, what is going on here?
Oh, hi there, Derrial.
Hey there.
It'd be pretty hard to hide. It's not like he was expecting her, hasn't seen her for a while. I totally understand the double take. I do double takes myself. All day.
I guess I would know that she's about to try and save me, so I better play this off pretty well. Like, even if you notice her, like, okay, let me get back to whatever I was doing.
I think
or for her, she just needs to, do the quiet sign or point
something.
to him to look away. But she was staring too. And granted, they haven't seen each other in a while, and they're both alive, and that's great. But Tom Neville, he's on it.
Yeah.
He's gonna see it.
I would imagine just like an initial double take, like, oh, you're there, and then kind of like play it off cool. But regardless, they pretty much quickly go into it where Danny jumps onto Neville. He ends up getting pushed off as Charlie comes in, and Charlie for some reason decides not to use her crossbow,
Yeah, I don't know
which
why.
she has at a range, but runs at him with a knife.
Know your strengths, Charlie.
Crossbow. That is her strength.
Well, and then
Miles
also
is the
keeps a
sword trained.
distance from there. She already saw that he can pin people.
Yeah.
He saw it with his fight with Miles. You should crossbow.
I mean, girls in general don't, the guy's gonna overpower you, so the knife probably not the best choice if you're going up against a big male.
Yeah.
Yeah, so crossbow's the way to go. What she has with
Keep
her,
your
too.
distance.
When I saw that she had the crossbow, I thought we were going to see some crossbow action when she was climbing on the train. But still, they have this big fight, and meanwhile, Miles is fighting with the guy up front who is about to shovel the bomb into the fire.
Into the fire.
So he throws it off, it blows up, and he does it just in time.
Yeah.
And then he kind of runs to try and help out. And it looks like they're going to get away for a second. And just as they're about to get away, Nate grabs Charlie, and he ends up kind of helping out Tom Neville there. And Nate, I keep calling him Nate. His name is Jason. So
Now it's Jason.
Nate slash Jason.
We can retire Nate.
So Jason grabs Danny, and I just want to say I called that last week.
Nice.
You
That
did.
was
You
my
know,
prediction
applause,
for the
please.
entire episode.
You deserve an applause.
I'm just saying.
I'll give you one, Dave.
So Jason is at this point stops it from happening, and we get Tom wants Charlie, but we see Jason, he does have feelings for Charlie. He's not going to just give her over. He kind of just throws her off there.
Yeah.
And to save her, it's not like he doesn't really have an option at that point. It's either betray his father. He kind of does betray his father, but it's like
sure.
otherwise
definitely.
she dies. So he does want to save her. He does clearly have feelings for her, but he just can't at this point betray his father and the militia. And Miles sees Charlie being thrown off, so he too jumps off of the train. And
Well, he also sees Jason with a bunch of militia guys with guns staring at him,
Yeah.
like, I dare you to try something, Miles. So he goes off after Charlie.
And then Neville gives Jason a line like, I want the girl, or I told you I wanted the girl, or something like that. So, I mean, we definitely saw that he's rebelling against his father, for sure.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
Yeah. So we do get, though, that romance again. That we get that inner struggle that we're going to probably see throughout the season with Jason, where do I choose the militia or do I choose Charlie? And hopefully for him, he'll somehow get to choose both in a way, but I don't know if that's going to happen for him. And he'll probably choose Charlie. So
I'm going to save it for my prediction.
So they end up they get away, and the whole group kind of comes together again, and we get this little exchange with Charlie, and Nora's doing a little bit better. Not so much better as we find out, but Nora's doing better. She's happy that Miles got to the bomb in time, and Miles comes to talk to Charlie and says, hey, so that guy, that uncle you had that you knew, he's not dead. I just can't be him right now. It just doesn't work right now.
I liked hearing that.
Which, yeah. So he finally does open up to her, and she's like, I don't want to hear it.
Yeah. What's going to happen when she finds out that he's the reason that her mom was taken from her, and also that she's still alive? Do you guys think Miles knows that her mom is still alive, and he's just letting her believe that her mother's dead?
Well, I don't know if she said that at any point to Miles, my mom is dead. I don't know if she's ever necessarily brought that up to him. Like, I don't recall that.
I feel like she's referred to it.
I think she did. I think she referred to her being dead.
Yeah.
Well, and do you think Miles knows that she's alive? Because maybe Monroe played it off that Rachel is dead.
Right.
So maybe that's another guilt factor that Miles.
But at one point, I remember Miles saying that he wasn't responsible for whatever happened to her mother. So wouldn't have he said that your mother died?
Maybe he just doesn't want to reveal it at that point. He's still, because he doesn't know what's going to happen, and maybe he almost thinks it's better that Charlie doesn't know, and he might be protecting her for some reason. Like, thinks it'd be more painful for her to know what's really going on, or he doesn't want her chasing after her mother or something to that extent.
Right.
It's just going to be a very interesting battle once she finds that information out.
I guess it also depends on how she finds it out, too, because will she find out after, because we still haven't gotten the reveal of why Miles did it, so maybe we'll also get the reveal at that point why he chose to do it, and it'll make a lot more sense, where it's not as horrible of a reason. So you're right though, that will be definitely an interesting exchange to see.
Yeah, this show's doing a great job of setting up all these future collides that we're going to get to see. And like, I feel like finally characters came together in this episode, which kind of perhaps is due to why it's such an excellent episode, because, you know, all these characters that were sort of not together were kind of united, and they met up with Neville, and Miles kind of came to a head at this point, and I really liked that collision. Yeah. And when that's going to keep happening as characters unite, and I think that's where a lot of the drama and violence is going to kick in.
And I feel like we're finally getting to a point too with the flashbacks where we are, especially with Neville here, where we're finally starting to, I'm starting to finally care about these characters.
Yeah, for sure.
And we're getting to a point where, I feel like I know these characters enough to start caring about them and what happens to them. So that's definitely also helping too. Like, I do kind of care for Tom. I want to know what's going to happen. I know why he acts the way he acts. So it definitely makes you grow an empathy for him.
Yeah, I understand him a lot more now.
And so then the episode ends with him coming to his family, and we do get that big reveal of Jason being the son, and also that Neville's wife is still alive. Which
Jim Raver. She finally appeared. We saw that on the news and gossip.
I kind of thought she was going to maybe end up dead or something. That would also fuel who he's turned into, but apparently she is still alive.
Yeah.
And his son Jason. So before we go on and talk about Captain Sebastian Monroe and Rachel, I do want to mention, guys, that we would love your feedback in any way possible. We love hearing from you guys. So either on YouTube, if you comment or rate us, we love seeing it. We do read all of them. On iTunes, do comment and rate us. We read all of them. And also, guys, check out the live show, and you can call in, and we love getting those too. Yeah. And AfterBuzz has tons of other shows that you can listen to for whatever you watch. I know Derrial Christon and I all do Walking Dead together. If you want to watch that, it just started last night. Awesome episode. You should check it out. And also tons of other shows. Once Upon a Time. You've got Revenge. You've got Homeland. So a lot of big shows. There are after shows for all of your favorite shows. So check them out. Except for Strike Back, which I love. And maybe I should do that after show because it's my favorite show on TV right now. But
Oh, really?
Yeah, Strike Back is amazing. It's on Cinemax. It's a British show. So
Yeah, no, I've seen it. I just don't
it's
have
such a
Cinemax.
good show. But let's jump on to the Monroe and Monroe's militia. So we get Monroe's hanging out with Rachel the whole time in this episode in his sort of government office area, which is what I'm going to call it. It's like kind of their capital in a way.
Yeah.
So he's hanging out with Rachel, and he's kind of using that whole threat to her about Danny, and it really is getting to her. We're seeing that she does care about her son, regardless of leaving him for whatever reason she did, which probably was to protect them.
Right.
Or something to save the kids. This is what's getting to her. And it's not until later on when she finally sees him unloaded and that he has an injury, that is what finally makes her break. She's like, he looks hurt. He's not just bluffing. She sees Danny, and she reveals that the pendants are there. She reveals that they were pendants.
pendants.
There
And
are
if you-
12.
Bring them all together, it can turn back the power.
And she was working on the design too.
And for those of you taking count at home, we've spotted 3 pendants so far. We've got the pendant with Aaron / Ben. We've got the pendant that was with
Grace.
and then we've got the pendant that was with our big
Randall.
mysterious bad guy, Randall. Who I really want to see what's going to happen with him.
what I was gonna
See
say.
more of him, I read.
We are.
There's
That
going to be a
was-
big storyline for that.
Because we haven't seen him for a couple episodes now, and I'm just like, where did Randall go? I want to know what's going on with Randall.
Yeah.
But
Well, apparently we're going to see a lot more of Randall and Grace soon.
yeah,
So.
but something that I didn't realize was that it wasn't just that Rachel knew. I mean, obviously she knew what Ben was doing, but it wasn't just that. She was also integral
Yeah.
to everything in some sort of way. And she hasn't quite, at this episode, revealed everything. She only revealed the pendants, and that was the power. So she hasn't even revealed her entire parts of how she's somehow involved and why she's involved. So we didn't quite get that. But maybe she's not just a housewife or whatever her job was. She's also somehow involved in the government, too.
It has to be more to it.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see what's going to happen with that.
Yeah.
But let's jump on some news and gossip.
AfterBuzz TV News.
All right. Well, I have from EW.com. It's about Eric Kripke, actually. He's speaking about the cause of the blackout for Revolution. Eric says in the article, the cause of the blackout may be revealed before the end of season 1. Kripke said that the show's writers are still discussing how early to reveal why the lights went out, but there's a distinct possibility we'll know before the first season ends.
I think they're changing their minds on that, because I remember when we did the preview episode, Eric Kripke had said that they will reveal it.
Yeah.
So apparently they're like, oh, the show's doing well, so let's not reveal it until
Let's
later.
keep the suspense going.
Yeah.
But he also says he would prefer that the questions get answered quickly. He said, answer a question and then open a door to the whole other big room. As for what will be the big room, Kripke promised that the truth about the cause of the blackout leads directly to a bigger and scarier mystery.
Oh.
All right.
And then his comment about killing off Maggie, he says, I sort of have a bad habit in a show of killing off people that I love. And I think Maggie was one of those. We decided internally early on that it was really important to show that this world had very real stakes and that it was truly dangerous because you're not close to hospitals, you're not close to paramedics, you're not close to help. We were very quickly realized that the scariest thing we could do was to kill off the group among themselves.
Yeah.
So, but he was sad to have Maggie go, and we all were sad to have Maggie go. So I
Yeah.
miss Maggie. I miss the British accent.
Darryl definitely shed a tear last week.
Shedding a tear for my homie.
And happy birthday to Zach Orth, who plays Aaron. It's his birthday today.
Aw, happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Whoa.
That actually
Super
costs
sexy.
money to sing too.
All right, yeah, that does actually cost a lot of money, apparently. So, I believe Kristen has some sociology.
I do. Put on my glasses. Apparently, I'm the only one with their glasses today.
I left my shades in the car.
I have contacts.
Sociology.
That count.
Here we go.
I brought nothing.
Okay, so a question has surfaced. Is society evolving or devolving or both? And some things that I've been reading on the internet was that society is evolving, but individuals are actually devolving, which kind of makes sense because the average Joe is more over-reliant on technology than ever before. The more we evolve and modernize our way of living, we do consequently forget the values of our fundamental needs and well-being. Are we falling to bad habits? We're more exposed as a society now, and we're kind of being looked at under a microscope. And I don't know how well we're adjusting. There's a huge distance between us and all the work that goes into making things possible. When we simply hand over money for something instead of sweating for it, we lack appreciation and understanding, which used to humble people.
Yeah.
If you've spent all day making your kitchen table, I mean, you're going to respect that table. And today we just hand over money or plastic cards for everything. So what do you guys think? Do you think society is evolving or de-evolving?
As far as that last point, I definitely agree. When you earn something, especially I've found for myself, if I've earned something, no matter how dumb it is, I care so much more about it. Even if it's a dumb little trinket or something, it's just like, since I somehow put my time and effort into it, it means a lot more. And those are kind of the things I treasure, more so than the things that might be more expensive that I just happen to buy. But as far as society evolving / de-evolving, I think it depends on a personal basis what you consider to be an evolution.
Yeah, I agree.
So if you think that knowledge is power and knowledge is the peak of humanity, maybe going into space now and things like that, whole time traveling the speed of warp speed that they think might be possible now, that they might discover in our lifetime, which is incredible, but things like that, if you think that stuff is the true evolution, then this new society would be completely de-evolved because we're losing all of the ways that we've evolved in that sense. But if you believe that it's a personal basis for maybe a physical sense, knowing the earth, understanding how things work, and understanding how to survive on your own without reliance on other things, in that sense, then this new society is the evolution. So I think it just depends on who you are. Like, clearly for Aaron, this is a de-evolution. But so it depends. I think it depends on an individual basis.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
But I feel like people are evolving the society more spiritually and mentally. Yes, they have to go back and sort of technology is de-evolved, but that's sort of what's needed, I feel like, for people to reflect.
But it's not just technology, though. With the loss of technology is the loss of knowledge. And I think that was more... I think that's more of the thing, because we've seen with the internet today, things like what happened in Egypt with a couple of years back, with everyone overthrowing the government because of the internet, everyone sharing knowledge with each other. Knowledge really has been a way for power. Even like the Bible back in old days, when it was translated from Latin to English, was when the people finally had power and had a say back in medieval times, which was a huge thing. So it's kind of that sense of technology. And that was because of the technological advance of the paper press. That's what made that possible. So technology really is, in a sense, knowledge, and knowledge brings power. So I think it depends on if you think that it is true power and what you believe it is. I
guess we're just abusing it in the wrong ways, because for knowledge, yes, definitely, and communication. But now, I mean, people are breaking up with people on their by text message, and people are totally reliant on like going to college, as that'll get you a good job rather than hard work. And they are like crushed with their debt, and there's little hope, and we're all alienated from our food supply, and we crop dependency, and we rely so much on chemicals. It's like,
I mean, I completely agree with you to that extent too. It's just definitely we're just going on. I completely.
You guys have a point. Do you guys are you guys part of?
I'm interested.
Are you guys part of the problem, or what do you guys think? Are you part of the problem with society?
Am I part of the problem or part of the solution?
Your solution.
I don't know. Are you?
Solution, and my contacts are a little drying out, so I apologize.
We're not going to have contacts.
I would be blind.
I'll make one final point on this, which is that with every knowledge and technological gain, there's going to be positive points and negative points. And as you pointed out, some of the very negative points, like text message breakups, over-reliance on Facebook and social media, which has a lot of good things, but a lot of really negative things, and just staying home and not being a community around people around you.
People aren't talking anymore.
In moderation, or used the correct way. It depends on the person and how they decide to use it. I mean, Facebook on the one hand, it's a bad thing. On the other hand, my whole family's in Chicago. It's the easiest way for me to talk to them.
Yeah, and Skype, as we saw with Maggie in the last week's episode.
I feel like it's really making people, though, be individuals and not unite as a society. I feel like now with all this, we can be interdependent from everything. We don't have to farm together. We don't have to work together for anything. And so we've got all these independent people, and everyone's sort of the rise of independence rather than working together, which I think will be our downfall.
We have been, this generation, our current generation, has been considered to be the selfish generation. It's the me
I would agree with
It's
that.
considered the me generation because everybody's thinking me, 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 me. So it's exactly what you were saying.
And it's the generation of not knowing as much hard work as we were kind of saying earlier. It's like we look at our parents, they worked hard, you got a good job, you did whatever, but this generation expects that these things will happen naturally. You don't even necessarily have to work hard.
They should just come to you.
They should just come to you.
I just deserve it. All right, so guys, let's move on then. Sorry, I was kind of talking a lot there.
No,
This is a good point. That's
good
a
discussion. I mean, that's the high concept that this show has provided us. That's what's making me think of these things. So applause for this show writers. I mean, great job. I think that you guys are asking all the audience members to reflect.
Definitely a lot of great questions. I mean, especially the initial thing which we talked about in the preview show, just electricity going out and just in general, and how much that would affect everything and how much we rely on it. But let's go to the commenters. And guys, we love getting your comments. Thank you so much for commenting on YouTube. We had CTR Sarge, Raptos, The Tripanera, Master Bobby 1, Rogue Forums, Naz CR, Yenderophany, Miguel Shelpmeat, Dave W3B, Mackenzie Cycle 789, and Beautiful Reads. On iTunes, we had Kyle Lamke, Mad Mimi 60, M Murph 71, Inez R. And I want to talk about a couple of the comments. Beautiful Reads said, I think they killed off Maggie in order to push Miles into a more parental role.
I agree with that.
Yeah, and that's I think actually Kristin commented on that last week. You commented on that, how it's kind of like to pass on the role to somebody else. Yeah. And I definitely agree. Dave W3B said, walking, are there no bicycles left?
I mean, there hasn't been. And I'm just
That was a good point when I saw that one.
Yeah, just so I can reiterate my point about the ship. People are like, oh, Kristen's retarded. What is she going to do, meet people? No, I meant that, like, she would get on a ship. She's all the way up in the corner of Seattle, Washington. If she could find a ship along the coast there, it'd make much more sense to sail down through the Panama Canal than take the risky road of walking 3,000 miles because we haven't seen any bikes in this world.
The ships that work, though, would be so risky. Ships used to be really deadly and risky.
But if that's your goal, I just feel like
I think her goal is quickness, though. I think the goal is speed, though.
Walking, though, you think that would be faster? They had horses.
Taking a boat all the way south around an entire continent.
I think it'd be safer.
And who knows if the Panama Canal would even work? That might run on electricity now too.
Okay, still, I guess I'm just like a pirate, and I just wanted her to get to the ocean. But I agree, if there's a bike, take the bike.
If you watch the preview episode, Kristen's a pirate, and that's all she ever thinks about.
You can't swashbuckle on a bike.
She is a pirate.
Absolutely not.
But regardless, the thing with bikes, though, is we're seeing they're always walking on land, too. Like, they don't have roads, and bikes don't really work as well unless you have a road.
That's a good point.
So I think that's kind of why we're not seeing it as much. If you had a road, it would make sense. Yeah. Let's get to iTunes comments. Inez R. said, why do people join the militia? She's wondering, and she's asking us, people like fake Nate. Well, we found out because Jason is the son of Tom Neville.
Well, I know I mentioned briefly with Jeremy, I wonder if they were trying to save people, and of course a lot of them, the beginning militia people, were ones that they saved.
Yeah. And I think that there may have been some type of form of people felt like they needed to join a group to be safe and to survive. So that was part of the militia as well at some point. So I think that that's part of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was something where, especially when Miles founded it, it was mandatory. Yeah. It was like we needed this because people were resorting to cannibalism and all these horrible atrocities, and it was something like we just need some sort of military presence and some sort of rules for people and guidelines. But moving on, Kyle Lamke, and he told us the pronunciation. Thank you, Kyle. He's asking, is Philadelphia the new capital of the country? Maybe Monroe is trying to get rid of the old ways by having, instead of Washington, D.C., Philadelphia is now the capital. And that is where he's hanging out. And I think that makes a lot of sense.
That's a good point.
I definitely also saw on the map that they had when Monroe was talking to John, it's broken up into different sections, too. So maybe that was the easiest section. I couldn't tell from the map as well, but I think that's a great point, too, is to try to get away from the old. But
there was fighting in St. Louis.
Yeah.
We found out.
There was something else I read read in the comments someone mentioned how last episode was called Plague Dogs, and they never explained the plague part. And if you guys remember, Aaron actually got bit. So are we going to see him develop a disease or sickness from being bitten by those dogs? Because it was titled Plague Dogs.
Right. I think it was much more the idea the whole episode was just centered around diseases. So I think it's just like, what if you get rabies from a dog? What if you get tetanus from stepping on a nail? So I think it was think it was just that whole idea.
Combination of things.
But I would like to see that happen.
Foaming at the mouth.
Zombies are coming. It's gonna happen.
Well, there's a sick part. Well, if we go into predictions.
Well, let's go to predictions.
Yeah.
Speaking of which,
transition
happen.
And now, your AfterBuzz TV predictions.
You start us off. I was waiting for you.
Oh, sorry. Well, because they talk about that, we see Charlie, I believe it was, needed penicillin, and so they have to go trade with this guy about that.
For Nora. It's for Nora.
Excuse me, for Nora. But Charlie ends up in there, and she looked like she had a black eye a little bit.
Yeah.
And you're kind of seeing, well, maybe there's still some medicine left and what you have to do to get that.
I heard that episode's called Sex and Drugs, so that leaves something to be desired.
Well, that is what apparently the trait was. I want Charlie if I give you Nora, or the penicillin.
Sex for drugs.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think this is a prediction, if we're not going to see it next episode, but just the fact that they were talking about that other republics around there have been fighting the Monroe one, I think that's going to come up in this season too. We're going to see a battle from another republic,
from another mother.
I'm kind of excited to see that. I want to see what those people live like.
Yeah, I want to I hope that we really get to see some tribal unit, because I'm sure clothes eventually became scarce, and I want to see some people with some painted faces and some ripped clothing, or maybe they made their own stuff. I want to see the cultural decline in some of these rebel groups.
And some guerrilla tactics going on.
That's fine too.
Yeah. I think we see that their tease was that Miles is going to have to make a decision, Nora or Charlie. I think Miles is going to pull through and save both. So that's my prediction. Miles is going to pull through and save both.
Part of the militia and not part of the militia.
Because we found out Miles is just good at killing people who end up killing everybody. But I just think that it's a good tease, but I think he's going to end up saving both somehow.
I think so too.
Well, my prediction is that now that we've finally revealed that Nate, AKA is Jason, I think that there's going to be a transition where he becomes a rebel and totally pulls from the militia.
Yeah.
And fight and goes against his father.
Who do you guys think have the other pendants? Do you think it's all just with
algebra teachers?
Algebra teachers.
Ben's an algebra teacher. Grace was an algebra teacher. So
wow,
algebra teachers.
Some high-flying algebra teachers there. Maybe just Randall has all of them so far, except for those final ones.
Something I'm really noticing is this show, there's so much more than meets the eye here. I didn't realize that Rachel had such a big part of it, and here she was, drawing up plans the whole time. So I'm really excited to see what her involvement was in it, and Randall and Grace and the whole collide with Miles and Monroe. This show is suddenly everything has come to surface and is colliding, and all the relationships are finally colliding as well, and it's just so much drama now, and I'm really excited for next week's episode, except for I guess we have to wait 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's gonna be 2 weeks, unfortunately. And with that, let's wrap that up. So guys, we will see you in a couple weeks. Puzzle pieces are finally coming together. Cannot wait for 2 weeks from now when we get to hopefully find out even more. And guys, once again, I'm Dave Klein. You can find me at Twitter at @TheDaveKlein, that is KLEIN, or at djk-online.com.
And I'm Kristin Carole, and you can find me on Twitter at TheFan, FAN2CTOSEE.
I'm Kristen Elizabeth Snyder, and you can Bing my blog, Cinematic Escape, if you liked what I had to say. If you don't do it anyway, or you can follow me on Twitter at Cinematic Escape as well.
I'm Derrial Christon. You can find me under my name, DerrialChriston, and I also am now doing Afterblog, the Revolution Afterblog, so check that out on our AfterBuzzTV.com site. So,
well done, Derrial.
See you guys in 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
From Bing.com, executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV Network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AFTERBUZZTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AFTERBUZZ TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.